All right, last podcast of January 2024. Excited to have the two gentlemen on, Cam Iwasa, Adam Moffat, former Republic players, current broadcasters, analysts, and whatever you call Cam Iwasa when he's on the broadcast. But what would you call that, Cam?
When I'm on the broadcast?
I'm just kidding. I don't know. Usually I make fun of Moffat right off the bat, and I was like, I'm going to change it up today, and then I, for whatever reason, decided to make a joke about Cam. It didn't make any sense.
I mean, if you're going to make a joke, it's what do you call me when I'm doing pregame and just drinking beer in front of this big crowd? That's yeah, what I don't know what's that position called?
Party boy.
I love it. That's my favorite part of the day. What are you talking about?
That's the one. Let's switch, Cam.
Yeah.
All right, well, excited to talk to you guys. It's been a while. We head into 2024. Moffat, I'm going to start with you. What's your thought process going into training camp when you got so many returning guys? As a guy who's been in camp, many different training camps, does that give you a little more comfort heading into a camp where you kind of know what to expect a little bit? Same head coach, obviously new coaching staff around him, but same players. Does that give you a little more comfortability?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, we saw it last year, I think, and the year prior. There was a lot of change coming into the 2022 season, coming into the 23 season, not as much change. You're just integrating some new faces. And this year, it's the same thing, a lot of continuity. And I think it's really good. It's good as a player when you know a lot of the people coming back. It's very, very tough. It's very tough bringing so many players together at one time. So I think the team's in a good spot to build upon what they did last year.
And when you come into camp, Cam, like, are you fired up? Are you excited to get back? Are you dreading the conditioning? Like, what's the mentality for guys as they get back into camp? Or are you just so jumping to be back?
I mean, there's definitely two sides to it. And I think that changes a little bit as you get older. You know, when my first couple of years as a professional, it was like very exciting to be there. And, you know, especially when, you know, I hadn't established myself whatsoever in my career. It was a chance to kind of, all right, this is the year, I'm ready to go, blah, blah, blah. And then as you get a little bit older, a little bit more established, it's like, all right, let's just get through these conditioning tests and let's get through, you know, some of these brutal double days and stuff like that. So like Adam said, I think the big part of preseason is kind of that feeling out process of, you know, meeting your new teammates. Even if you're a returner, usually there's enough turnover to where you're kind of figuring out what your team's going to be like. Fortunately, the guys this year don't have to deal with that much. I think there's only, 5 new guys or
5 or 6,
something like that. So, you know, from that standpoint, that's a huge advantage that they can kind of get right to it and start building on what they had last year.
Well, the beep test is back. I know it went away for, I think, a couple of years. It's back. Do you guys have any memories regarding the beep test? That's a pretty soccer wide thing. That's not just Republic training camp, right? Or
yeah, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've done that everywhere I've been, whether it's college or professional, every team. Now that Luke is full-time on staff, you knew the conditioning tests were going to be prominent.
Yeah. You got any good beep test stories, Moffat?
I mean, I don't want to throw Luke Brayfield under the bus, but I remember one year, Cam, were you there that year? Was he trying to do it on his phone and his phone died or something?
Oh, yeah. You know, honestly, the worst beep test story I have is, so there's like, you know, like I said, when you become a little bit more of a veteran guy, it's like, all right, just make sure that you pass. You don't necessarily need to be doing too much to, like, you know, going until you're like literally going to like pass out, which some guys do. You know, it makes an impression on the coaches and stuff when you show that kind of thing. But the number one thing is, like, always beat the keepers, you know, like make sure that like the keepers fall out before you stop, no matter what. And in 2018 and 2019, we had Josh Cohen, who's like the fittest keeper that's ever existed. And like his now wife is like former cross country athlete. So he would like run with her all the time. So this guy was just crazy fit. And so it's like, you get to the point, you're like, all right, we pass, and you're going, and you're like, all right, Josh, like, stop. Josh, stop. And it's like, I ended up going like an extra like 10 rounds than I initially wanted to because Josh just wouldn't quit. And I was like, I'm not going to stop before a keeper stops.
I'm glad we mentioned this. And I didn't even think about this, but I texted this in the group message, NA group message. This is the rules of the beep test from Amobi Akugo, who, I mean, we all know. Here's the first. He has 4 rules. I love this. He tweeted this last week. I sent it to Katie, and I was like, how accurate is this? Don't be the first one out. You guys agree with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Don't let the goalies beat you. You just mentioned that. He said some goalies are super fit now. And then Katie mentioned, I think, that Josh got third one year. I'm assuming
Yeah,
that's
he
the
like
same year.
crushed
Cam.
it, and it
Yeah.
was terrible.
Find out from the trainer your expected range for your position and beat that by at least 2 levels.
Mm-hmm.
Beat your position competition.
Yeah. And again, that changes as you become a little bit more of a veteran guy. Like when Adam was 35, no one expected him to be the last one standing. It was like, hey, like, you know, hit your number and you're good. Like then you get the guys that are rookies. Like my rookie year, I smashed the beat test, you know, and it was like, and you know, in the couple of years after that, it was like, I'm still not established. I got to show that, like, you know, being fit is something that establishes yourself as you know, a little bit of a cut above. So like exactly that, beat the other strikers was always my thing. You know, some of these midfielders are crazy fit, and I couldn't keep up. Like the year that the years that Drew Skundrich was here, like that guy was a machine, and I think he ended the test. Like he literally went until the track ended.
Well, you could see it on the field too, right? I mean, that's kind of he could run forever. Moffat, your thought? What's your feeling about the beep test? You a fan?
I mean, not doing it for fun, if that's what you're thinking. Like Cam mentioned, I think it's such a great opportunity to make a really good initial impression. I remember I was always a steady. I mean, my position I played, I was up and down the field, so I was pretty good at it. But when you're younger, it's like you want to show up and make an impression. Even when you're older, it can't hurt. But at the same time, I'm not. They know what they're getting at that point, right? But if you're trying to make an initial impression, like something that has nothing to do with how good you are at soccer can actually give you a little bit of a head start, right? It not only does it show, you know, that you're fit, but then it's also there's so much mental stuff to it as well. It's like, okay, has this person been working hard themselves? Can they dig a little bit deeper? Can they keep going? Those are all good traits you like to see in a player. So it's good. It's really good. It's again, not something I will be doing for fun. Hopefully I never have to do it again. It'd be fun to see if I could beat any of the goalkeepers nowadays, but probably not. But it's just part of being an athlete, and part of being in the games, being as fit as you can. So good luck to those guys.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that too, it's usually the first thing or one of the first things you do coming into training camp. And so it shows the guys that were actually working in the off season when nobody was looking, right? I mean, it's you guys kind of go their separate ways and you don't see them for a couple of months. And then it's like, all right, here we go. Let's see what you were doing. And, you know, for the coaches, I think that's a big deal to show, hey, this guy's taking care of himself. This guy's ready to go. You know, we don't have to get him into shape. He came in shape. It definitely makes a big thing, especially if you're a new guy coming into a team, you know. For any of these, you know, 5 or 6 guys that are going to be new players this year, if they show up and do well on the beep test, like it's certainly going to make an impression in Mark's head.
I can think of in the last, I don't know, 3 to 4 years, coming to the first day and watching the conditioning, and I can tell immediately who has not been working out. I mean, it's obvious.
Every year, every team, you get that. You're just like, you see. I remember one time a Brazilian guy. He was with the Dynamo, and we just got to the MLS Cup final. 2 months later, he comes back in, and he's wearing the same jeans, but a lot skinnier. They're a lot tighter. Just absolutely ballooned up, and it's like, man, what have you done for 2 months? You've literally, it doesn't look like you ran one bit, you know. Yeah. So it's very evident to see at times, you know, who's put the work in, who's not, and then you're just playing catch up. You kind of put yourself behind. Yeah. Coaches aren't happy, and it's not great. And in this day and age, especially, I mean, not to make excuses from the past, but I feel like with everything you have at your disposal and all the information now you have on taking care of yourself, like being a professional athlete, like you should be ready for it. I'm sure most of these guys will be.
I think last year I remember hearing, and I didn't do the beep test last year, but last year I remember hearing like it was very impressive how into shape everybody was coming into camp. And I think we're going to see the same thing this year. Quickly, I wanted to ask, because we had Rower on the podcast last week. We talked injury and we talked a lot of other things, but Adam Moffat's age came up, and I'm going to listen. we'll talk about it after. We'll talk about it. We got a clip to play. Let's show these guys the clip.
Well, I just want to point out, because we told a Moffat story earlier. I love making fun of Moffat. He's got to be one of my favorite people to make fun of. He's 34, I believe. You're 36.
He's older than me.
Is he?
I
No,
think
I'm
so.
I'm pretty sure he's younger.
Really?
Yes, because I think last year we
he's
talked.
37.
He looks 37. He looks.
No comment, Adam.
You laughed.
No
though.
comment.
You laughed.
Well, dude, I'm sorry, Moffat. I googled it after.
I'm a year older than him. He knows it. He knows I'm 1 year older than him.
He does know
It's
it.
pretty
You're right.
generous to say he looks 37.
That was so nice of you. Thank you. Grays here.
I thought he was 34, so it was. I was. For whatever reason, Moffat, I thought you were younger. I thought we had talked about this, but I guess I must have.
You know what it is? I used to be 34. So yeah.
I told him the story about when we were at the Galaxy game, and you were sitting next to me. What? What was that?
What I did at the Galaxy game? What I did?
We were sitting next to each other down in LA, and we hadn't touched the ball.
My expert analysis.
Yeah. You go, it's been like 3 minutes into the game. We haven't touched the ball. And you're like, this is what an MLS team looks like. And I mean, immediately we counterattack and score right after that. It was
yeah, you didn't let me finish what I was going to say. I was like, we're going to go up and score in a second.
Yeah, right. That's right. I cut you off.
Did you call Connor Donovan 42 years old in a podcast as well?
No, Roro called him 42 because he's saying he's like an old man in the way he
does
acts.
seem like an old man, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. He does.
Mature,
mature. Guys like Connor, guys like Adam, once that hair starts thinning a little bit, it's just.
What do you mean thinning?
It's tough.
It's a style.
Are you talking my hair?
You got the Costanza going.
Oh man. All right. Anyway, I wanted to play that clip. All right, going back to into training camp. So we talked conditioning, beep test, but then you're getting on the field, and I actually think the team is before they're doing conditioning, they're playing a little bit just to try and get some of that excitement up front. I'm pretty sure. What are some of the focuses that guys should expect going into training camp that fans should know about? Adam, I'll start with you. Like, what are they working on early on in camp?
I think getting to know people as quickly as possible, especially you speak about those new. The new players, I think it's so important that they feel welcomed. It can be tough, especially if you have a guy from, like last year, Arnold coming in, Sebastian coming in from different countries, different continents. So making them feel welcome is really, really important. I've been on teams where it's really divided. You have these cliques and stuff like that, and it's not great. It's not great for the product on the field. So I think the better unity you can get, and I think preseason does a great job of that, and that can bode really, really well for the long term when you guys have an actual relationship and you've kind of built this trust with each other, especially when the times are rough, because they will be rough during the season. You're going to a bad spell, you kind of know you've got each other's back. So I really like that aspect of it. Going on, you're going to go down to Tucson, you're going to go on these little road trips. So it's good to get to know everyone. And
then from a striker aspect, right? We have Trevor Mon coming in for the Republic. He's coming up from League One. Cam coming in as a striker to a team where you don't know anybody. What is that process like?
I mean, it's just you're a new guy. I know he's coming in from League One and he had a great season, right? But you're coming in and proving like, hey, I belong here, right? On one of the best teams in the league in the USL Championship. You're coming in, you want to say, hey, look, like it's not an accident that they signed me. Like I absolutely belong. And so if you do, if there's a scrimmage day one or whatever, like if you can go in there and net a goal, it's huge. But, for me with preseason, it was always like I worked out a lot in the off season to stay fit. We trained a lot, like small sided stuff, but like the number one thing was like, don't get hurt in the off season. You know what I mean? And so coming into preseason, it's like, you kind of got to recalibrate. You haven't played like a super physical style in a couple of months. You haven't played 11s most likely, since the last game of the season. And so, that sort of thing, getting back into the swing of the physicality and like playing like truly full speed and playing as hard as you can. Like that's the sort of thing that, at least for me in the off season, didn't really happen very much. So coming in as a chance to kind of get reacclimated into the speed and physicality.
For instance, for a guy like Amon, you're going up against Herrera, right, for that starting 9 spot. Is there any, is that the guy obviously there's always healthy competition. You always want that in training camp, but I would imagine having those 2 guys pushing each other is going to be good for the whole team, right?
Definitely. I mean, it's 2 sides of things. You got the new guy coming in that wants to prove himself, and then you got, Herrera, who's like, hey, look, this is my job, and I'm going to secure that. I'm going to, come in preseason and establish that I am the number 9. So, you're going to have 2 guys that are really working hard to try to get as many minutes as they can. And at the end of the day, like, you're still teammates. So you hope that they have that sort of relationship where they can still get along. And like you said, it's a healthy competition, but that sort of thing is just motivation for both sides.
And then you play a lot of friendlies in camp, right? You play, MLS teams, you play lower division teams, you play a little bit of everybody during camp. Moffat, how do you approach some of those friendlies? What are you trying to focus on? Is it just trying to, because you're not necessarily trying to win. You are, but that's not necessarily the goal. So how do you approach them?
Like Cam mentioned, you don't want to get hurt is the biggest thing, right? So that's obviously key. You don't really help anyone when you're hurt, and it can just put you back, behind people. But I think building relationships on the field as well as we're off the field, but on the field, right? So it's like building a little bit chemistry. If I'm a central midfielder, I'm playing with someone else. So you want to kind of, get that partnership going as quickly as possible. If you're Cam, working with the attacking midfielders, so there's all those little pieces. And it's a chance for the coach to see who kind of does fit well together. The result does not matter, but it's still a game at the end of the day, right? So it's like who's working the hardest. Some of these games are tough, right? If you're playing a lower level, for example. I remember sometimes playing against like teenagers and stuff like that, and it's just like, and especially if you're older, it's like, I gotta play in this game. So it's how do you mentally get right for that? Yeah. Because you're playing against some of these teenage kids who are just sprinting around and crazy, and it's like, okay, I got to get this right. So I think it shows a little bit of the mental side as well. But the big key is not getting hurt. But at the same time, you don't want to just go through preseason and not think about that. You're actually preparing for the whole season ahead. So the tactical stuff, all the information the coaches are going to give you, you want to be in a spot. I remember myself as a younger player not being considered a starter at the start of preseason, and then getting to the point by the end of preseason that I've impressed enough that, okay, first game of the season, I'm starting, right? And that should be the goal of every single player there. It's like, how can I stay healthy and get my weight into that first game of the season? That's what they all want to do.
What about going into camp and when you are there, like it seems like it's a lot of some double days, it's a lot of conditioning, it's a lot. So you're spending a lot of time with, your teammates. I'm assuming, Cam, like when you have a lot of guys coming back, you have a couple new guys, that just makes it more fun, right? And more, you feel like you're building towards something. This team obviously has been on the doorstep of winning a championship the last 2 years. There's like that drive, right? There's also the fact that people, there's this group gets along really well. It seems like there's a lot of things set up for them in camp to have a successful camp and hit the season with the ground running. Yeah,
definitely. It's super fun. I mean, you've come together because it's a professional relationship, but you spend so much time around the guys that they end up being, becoming some of your best friends. So the double days suck. There's no way around it. I mean, it's just absolutely exhausting, especially when you stack up, a week or two, just straight double days. I mean, it's just really, really brutal. It's hard on your body. It's hard mentally. But being around your buddies and getting to joke and laugh and hang out in the time in between the training sessions, that makes a huge difference, just especially mentally, just to kind of get your mind off of the grind and really enjoy yourself for a little bit. That's pretty huge.
What's one thing you guys are looking forward to seeing this team take the field this year? Moffat, I'll start with you. Like, is there any combination you're interested? Like, for me personally, I'm interested in seeing how Roro and Russ play together. We didn't get to see a whole lot of that this last year. That's one of the things that I'm excited. How can Roro's creativity allow Russ to take a little more advantage? That's the one thing I'm most excited to see on the attacking end. Moffat, is there any one thing you're looking at that you're excited to see the first time you see this team take the field?
Probably, like you mentioned earlier, Trevor stepping up. He scored a lot of goals last year in League One, and it's not the team struggled with it last year, but it's definitely, from a striker point of view, I think it was, the actual striker scoring the goals. Russell scored a lot from other positions, so that's what you want to see. We know Sebastian hurt last year, so didn't get the rhythm that he wanted, but I think I'm excited. It's always exciting to see a new player come in. It was the same for Sebastian when he came in. That's a striker who's going to score goals. Those are typically the players people want to see. And I was a central midfielder, but scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in the game. And Cam, did it magnificently for this club, right? And it's always like, who's going to be that player, that striker who puts the ball in the back of the net, because that makes a huge difference when you do have that guy. Russell did it last year. Can there be someone else who can add to that? So for me, it's Trevor, seeing how he integrates. And I think you have a little bit of a chip in your shoulder when you come from a lower level. I think, like Cam mentioned, it's like, I deserve to be here. And now you got to work and improve it. We've seen Dami come from a lower level. There's been a few players through the years who have come in and done really, really well. So I'm excited to see how he settles in. And hopefully it's another really good season for him.
And to mention too, Sebastian didn't have a full training camp last year, so he kind of was playing catch up, like you mentioned earlier. So it'll be exciting to see how he looks after a full camp. Cam, what's the one thing you were looking at?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always am a little bit biased, and I watch the strikers a lot. And but along with that, you certainly don't score goals just because of the attack. It's all about the infrastructure, especially in your midfield, of how they can, work the ball into dangerous situations to give you opportunities. So with that said, like, I'm really curious to see, the team obviously was great last year, had an awesome season, but within that season, there were a couple of patches that were pretty rough, and especially because there were so many injuries in the midfield. So I'm excited to see, hopefully, a season where we can keep everybody on the field. You mentioned Roro. I just, for me, there's nobody in the league that pulls the strings quite the way that he does when he's fully fit and on top of his game. And so if we can have a fully fit, healthy Roro playing alongside, Luis and, Nick coming back for a full season, there's just a lot of talent in that midfield that if they can stay healthy together, I mean, it can be really, really special. And I think you could see, not only Russell, come back with another great season, but I think we can see, whether it's Trevor or it's Sebastian, one of these guys or both of the guys could end up putting up some big numbers as well.
I want to mention the back line real quick, because I think they are the one thing that's been pretty consistent the last 2 years. Obviously, that's almost something that maybe we all think we feel pretty good about that. That's not necessarily something that is a question mark going into this year, but definitely something I wanted to mention. Vidiello obviously winning Gold Glove last year. A lot of that had to do with him and the defense. But I want to ask Moffat quickly, because beginning of the year last year, Republic hit the ground running. They were scoring goals left and right, and we were dominating early in the season. It's like, holy crap. And then all of a sudden, kind of started to hit the brakes a little bit. Started to got some injuries. Goals stopped coming as frequently. What do you think changed there? And is that something that, Sacramento can try and plan for, or know that's coming ahead of time? Or is there anything that they changed where they can try and go in and, try and keep the ground running like they did earlier in that last year?
I think it just shows that how high a standard's been set, that, it's like literally we're in first for almost the whole season, right? So there was going to be dry spells. You could be a team who has a dry spell the whole year, right? And, this club hasn't had many of that, only missed the playoffs one time. So the standard has been set, and it's a very high standard to keep. The expectations are there that this team's always going to compete, but you are going to get dry spells throughout the season. I think the way this club is constructed, they don't give away too many goals. So we did see a little spell there where they were giving goals up and then they weren't scoring, right? So it's both. It's not a huge deal if you're scoring goals and you're giving up a couple. It's fine. You're okay. I think you just cannot foresee how many injuries are going to happen. But as long as the team, again, you saw almost all the players are back defensively. You've added Jonathan Ricketts there too. So I think solid at the back. If Lee Desmond stays fit, Danny Vitiello, if you can always make sure you're tough to score against and you only need 1 goal, maybe 2 goals to win a game, then you're set. You're going to go through dry spells. So I don't think too much has to change. I think the team's in a good spot. I think just riding what can be a tough season and making sure that you will have dry spells, but can you come back out? And I think the team did last year.
Well, not only that, but and I would imagine, Cam, like you're writing the fact that despite you had scored a lot of goals early in the season, that's extremely hard to do for a whole year. I mean, they were red hot. Sometimes that just doesn't remain, right? That's to be able to hold yourself to that standard is not necessarily something that can happen all year long.
Yeah, well, and it's both as a team and like individually, I mean, Russell was phenomenal last season, but he had a stretch of nearly 2 months where he didn't score a goal, right? And that's just part of the game. I mean, there's times where you'll be on a stretch and it seems like every time you kick a ball, it's in the back of the net, and you find other times where it's like, I literally could not have hit that any better. And, the keeper makes an unbelievable save, or defender, gets a last second deflection and it goes just wide, or whatever it may be. And so, there's the margins are so small between, a win and a draw and a loss, that it's just continuing to ride the wave, and it's a very long season. And so it's all cliches, but you can't get too high, you can't get too down on yourself, because it's just it always seems to come back around in the end, and all you can do is continue to put yourself in those situations. And that's what they did last season, despite all the injuries, despite a couple of stretches that by their, like you said, with the high standards, they seemed like bad stretches, but they continue to put themselves in the situation, and at the end of the day, they finished first place in the league.
Last thing before we go, Moffat, not to bring this up, but there's been some and I truly mean this. I'm not intentionally. This is not a joke, because normally I have joked about this, but you've been on the doorstep of winning a title and not win the title. What's it like going into the next year with that hunger? How hard is it to remain that hungry, or to, kind of continue to go for that title after, Sacramento's been close for 2 years?
Well, I think having a lot of the same players come back helps a lot, right? It's not brand new players, and last season was whatever. They were with a different club. It doesn't matter.
Right.
A lot of these boys probably feel the sting of being favorites to win last year, which they deserved throughout their season, throughout the regular season. Then getting into the playoffs, it was like, okay, they're ready. So that sting does stay with you. And the fact that almost all of them have gone through that, it really does bode well to, hey, we know we're right there. We're right there. It's just a few little pieces we need to get together. So I think it's a good thing. It's so hard to win a championship. Like, one team does it, and no one would have guessed Phoenix winning that last year. I mean, even going into the playoffs, you're like, these guys, they won 1 in 7 games or something.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate how the system is, but they got together at the right time, and they kind of managed to win a championship. So great for them. This team knows that they were better than Phoenix throughout the whole season. So if they can continue that this year, get to the playoffs again. You never know what happens, but you can prepare yourself as best as possible. So I think it's a good thing that a lot of returning players will be back.
Did you not have that at the Dynamo after the year you lost?
We lost. Well, we did. We had another good season. So we lost in 2011 to Mr. Donovan and the Galaxy. So then, yeah, we lost in that final 1-0, I think it was. But we had a lot of the same players come back. And then we got to the final again and played the Galaxy again, lost again, 3-1. So we had another good season, right? 2 years in a row, Dynamo Galaxy. And we were up 1-0 at halftime that second game. And then Galaxy obviously got their penalty kicks that are going to get, So, but we did. So we had a lot of the same returning players. We knew we had a great core, a really good unit. We had that togetherness. We weren't the best team in the league. by any means, but when it came to playoff time, stuff like that, we had a great unity that they could win his games, except against the Galaxy. So we were prepared for that, but then we lost again, and then next season, we switched it up. I left, so that's why they didn't get to the final.
Makes sense. All right, well, guys, this was great. Cam, how's it being a new dad? It's good. Getting some sleep.
It's good. Yeah, she's starting to sleep. So, life has gotten a lot easier than it was the first couple of months. So, we'll hopefully this is a permanent thing that she's going to sleep through the night.
Moffat, any tips for him?
Yeah, lots of coffee, man. Lots of coffee.
I'm not a coffee drinker, so that's been a little bit tough.
Oh man.
Sorry.
Yikes.
She'll start sleeping through the night. You'll be set. You'll be set.
Hey, it's a lot harder on Bailey than it is on me, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm
caffeinated
sure.
tea. Yeah, there we go. Some caffeinated tea. Is that your jam?
What's your go-to for caffeine, Iwasa?
I don't drink any caffeine.
I don't need it
At all?
Mm-mm.
Oh. What's that
I get
like?
jittery and I don't like it.
You don't?
Yeah. Emil says Luke would be proud. That he's accurate about that. That's true.
Luke hammers coffee.
He looks.
He does
all the time.
Yeah.
Didn't
Nervous,
know
right?
That guy. He's having a kid in a couple of months. He's in for a rude awakening because if that guy doesn't get his 10 hours, he is bent out of shape. So yeah,
it's an adjustment. Yeah, that's another. We could do another podcast on that. Is like going through preseason and having kids.
I'll tell you what, that was the one thing I said to Bailey. I remember, a week or two after Blake was born, we're sitting up there and Bailey's feeding her, and it's like 3 a.m. We haven't slept at all. And I just looked at her. I was like, I don't know how the hell I would go to practice tomorrow if I was still playing, tough. So I feel for, the guys that had kids recently, or,
Vitiello just had one.
Adam, obviously. Yeah. Adam, obviously you had 3 of them, and we're dealing with, flying to games late and flying home right after and stuff like that. I mean, that's just, I'm glad that I didn't have a kid, while I was still active.
Yeah, it's the wives. I mean, it was like if I had 3 kids within 4 years ish. Ours are about 4.5 years apart, but while I was still playing, and it like going to preseason, you will go away and like, hey, wife, I'm gone for 2 weeks. Good luck to you. So it's that was tough.
I'm sure she was thrilled about that.
I'm gone again. I'm going to Mexico this time. A resort. We're going to be at a resort. Can you believe it?
And meanwhile, you're in like Columbus, and it's like pouring rain.
Yeah. So but thanks to those wives. Yeah.
There you go. Good way to end it. The good way to end it. All right, Moffat, Cam, thank you guys. We'll see you soon. And enjoyed chatting with you guys. And sorry, Moffat, for getting your age wrong.
No worries, Connor.
I just thought you were young at heart. That's what it was.
I am. Yeah, I am.
Anyway,
this is what a 37-year-old Scotsman looks like. Thanks for having us, Connor. Can't wait to get the season going.
Yeah. Thanks, Cam.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, guys.